Like my first day here was like teaching.
Teaching? You started teaching right away, huh?
Pretty much, yeah. Yep.
All right.
Yeah. Went from like working
trial by fire
to teaching. Exactly. Yeah, it was definitely.
It probably came really natural to you, though, right?
I don't know. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard, but it's fun. Yeah, definitely.
All right. All right, everyone. Welcome to Neumont Live. My name's Melissa Nelson. I'm an admissions officer here at Neumont. And today we've got Orrian Rich with us. Welcome, Orrian.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa.
Glad to have you here. So today we're going to be talking about all things information systems. So we're going to drill Orrian. So as you've got your questions, I want you to send them in to us. We are going to be watching for those and taking your questions live. And to get started, Orrian, I do want to know more about you. Like, tell us what brought you to Neumont and what it is that you do for us here.
Sure. Well, let me give you a little background just on me. So, like I said, my name's Orrian Rich. I'm the chair of the Information Systems degree. And I fortunately grew up in Utah. Love the outdoors. I was fortunate enough to have a mom that was a ski instructor.
Oh, my
goodness.
So
I got in the mountains early, ski racing, and started snowboarding in the early 80s and loved to wake surf and camp and do those kind of fun things.
Oh, nice.
Do you like that? Do you camp every once in a while?
You know, I love Utah just for that because outdoors, there's so much to do. And I was just thinking, you know, Utah's known for our world-class skiing. So if you guys need a teacher for skiing, I mean, you got a hookup right here. But yeah, well, I am curious about as far as what introduced you to Neumont? How did you find us?
Sure. It was kind of a little interesting. I wasn't really looking for a position, and I had a recruiter call me up and say, "Hey, Orrian, I've got this really cool opportunity. I looked at your resume, I looked at your background. I think you'd really like this." And I'm like, well, okay, what's this going on? Yeah, just out of the blue kind of thing. And I was kind of like, you know, I'm open to new things and experiences. So I'm like, okay, tell me more. Because he's like, you're going to be great at this. And I'm like, he's like, okay, it's a teaching position at a college here in Salt Lake. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. You know, we'll teach some IS classes. And so he said, I want to introduce you to the folks and let's get you an interview down here. And so I came and interviewed with Ben Fletcher, who's now one of our VPs, and he talked to me about the IS program and talked to me about Neumont, and I was like, wow, this sounds great. And so we went through a battery of interviews, and I decided that Neumont would be a great opportunity for me, and so that's kind of how I came. Yeah, I
like that. You know, I do have to say, I spoke to a student the other day, and this is something that we're kind of stealthy here at Neumont because, you know, I spoke to a student just last night. He was looking at this giant poster that we'd sent him in the mail, and he's like, I was just looking at that, and you called me. And it sounds like that's kind of what happened to you. We just nabbed you out of the blue. I love it. Good.
Yep, for sure.
Glad we found you. Well, tell us a little bit about the companies you've worked for in the past. What's your experience?
Sure. So I started out kind of my IT career, really, I loved computers, and I started out in computers as a draftsman. So I did drafting out of high school, and I evolved kind of into their computer technician. So that was back in this is a long time ago. This is back in the like Windows NT days, DOS, kind of things that most of our students are going to be like, what? What are you? I don't even know what you're talking about. But so I started there, and from there I decided I was going to college, going to the regular university. I thought, well, you know, I love history. I'm going to be a history teacher. I'm taking lots of anthropology classes, and I'm really digging this. And I decided, and I got down that road a ways, and then I realized that maybe I wasn't going to make quite as much money as I wanted to make. And I thought having the summers off would be pretty cool, but I decided that really, honestly, that I needed to go a different route. And I loved computers, and I was supporting the network. And so I decided at that point in time in my career I wanted to get my MCSE certification. So I got my MCSE NT4 certification and started looking for IT jobs. And I got my first IT job was for a school district in Wyoming. Sweetwater School District number 2 in Green River, Wyoming. I was their land administrator up there.
Right.
So
Green River is a small town.
Small town, great place. I got my start up there. it was really a great opportunity because I started at a much better position than I would have started if I started Salt Lake or Ogden in the bigger city. And so I got to really get my hands on a lot more equipment and learn some technology really fast.
That's
I worked
cool.
for there for a couple of years and got some really good experience. And then I moved on to a company that manufactures sprinklers.
Oh.
So I went from sprinkler education to sprinklers, and I worked for them as their networks engineer there for a number of years. And then I moved on to the job I was at longest was I worked for a company called Management Training Corporation.
Okay.
They manage private prisons and Job Corps around the country.
Oh, wow.
I worked for them for about 9 years. And
Wow.
so the running joke of my family was my son is in prison all the time.
Oh, you're in prison.
So I set up computer systems for inmates and student labs because we did a lot of education for inmates across the country,
No, that
and
makes
did
sense.
security for their corporate office. And then I did some consulting, and then I ended up over here at Neumont.
Oh, wow.
So
Well, we're glad to have you, and it sounds like the money played a big role in your changing from drafting and architecture and coming here. Yeah,
it did.
Or anthropology.
Yeah,
sorry,
going from history to
anthropology.
computers. And I think the thing there was I loved both quite a bit, and so it was easy for me to kind of make a change and
Very
go into
cool.
computers.
Well, hey, I have a quick question because our audience, they're curious about your laptop. So they want to know why you have such a big screen and two, kind of the specs about your laptop. So that's what they're curious about.
So I don't know if the students, the people that are watching, we had another YouTube video, I believe, just recently that was the unveiling of the new laptops that the students are incoming are going to have. I think Nick did that last week, and it was really cool. And he showed a lot of the specs on the new laptops. My laptop currently is what the students have that came in last year.
Oh, okay.
And so it's a Dell i7 7th generation. It's got 32 gigs of RAM. It's got a touch screen on it. Great little box. We do lots of virtualization and things for our IS program on these that really drive our program. It's got an SSD in it, probably one of the fastest SSD drives that are out there right now. Did some benchmark testing on it, and it's a sweet little machine.
This is all new language for me. I love it. I love it. I'm sure our students are loving that too.
One of the cool things is because of in the IS program we spin up a lot of virtual machines. We use the technology a lot on our laptops. We kind of drive what Neumont, from my degree, we kind of drive the systems that the rest of the students get because we have such high utilization on our laptops that we're making sure they get 32 gigs of RAM. We're making sure that they have high-end processors because we're going to really tax these while the students are here at Neumont.
So how important would you say it is to have the right tool, which is your laptop, for classes?
Oh, it's critical. And one of the reasons why, at least, we standardize so that everybody has the same laptop. Everybody can, if we troubleshoot or we have any problems during class while we're doing a lot of labs, we do a lot of hands-on work. And so it becomes really critical for us to have great tools that respond fast and that students can optimize their learning experience, really.
Okay. And then I think what our audience is also curious about is what is your preferred operating system? What is your go-to? What do you like?
It's kind of interesting because throughout my career, I've mostly been a Windows administrator. And so I prefer to actually use Windows. I'm getting more Linux experience. And we have one of our other IS instructors. He's the Linux expert, and I'm more the Windows guru. So a lot of my students, actually, some of my students this year, last year, they gave me this T-shirt that said, because I often joke, it says "GUI loser" because I use a graphical interface. And
well, now I'm wondering why you didn't wear GUI loser today.
I should have worn that. I have to explain it to everybody. And on the back, it often has another catchphrase that I use often. I said. I often tell students that I'm lazy. No, I mean efficient. So it says that on the back as well. So we have a lot of fun at Neumont. My students kind of like to give me a hard time. But
it sounds like you get along great with the students.
Yep.
Well, hey, I'm curious about what would you say the difference between teaching and working in the tech industry would be, and really what skills do you feel that you find useful for both of those?
Okay. To be honest, And we take a little bit different approach kind of at Neumont. And so our teaching approach, I think, is somewhat similar, at least as far as my teaching approach, is similar to what you're going to see in industry a little bit. Okay. A lot of times, then I want to bring that into my students, because what I've heard from my industry contacts is that a lot of times students graduate from college and they really don't have some of these skills that employers are looking for. And so a lot of my classes revolve around, maybe I don't give you the exact instructions on how to do things. Sometimes they're a little vague. Okay. And that's what your boss is going to come to you say in industry. He's going to say, hey, Orrian, I want you to stand up this server. We're going to do this. I want this kind of project, or I want this end result, and I want you to deliver for me. It doesn't give you a lot of instructions. And so sometimes we'll do that in some of our classes and projects that we do at Neumont. And so it's a lot like industry. Well, we'll work through things as we go. Maybe we don't have a hard end result in some of our classes. And so it's a real new experience for some of the students that are coming in, because they're so used to, I need to do step A, B, C, and here's my, here's how I get the grade I want, an A, right? And so it's a little bit unique, but it's a fun approach that a lot of our students really, sometimes they struggle at first, but then they really take a hold and they can really be creative in a sense.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, is that you're teaching the students to be really creative with their own thought process and how to get things done. Is that kind of...
Sure. Yeah. When I have somebody write up a paper or we do documentation, I don't want everybody's to be blue with yellow highlights, and I want to see what people do, because as a class, sometimes we come up with some really cool, innovative ideas that I haven't even thought about, and we can. And the cool thing about Neumont is we're able to kind of rotate really quickly, and we can get those experiences as a group, and we can kind of move in a new direction, which makes it super fun for some of our classes.
Yeah, it sounds exciting. Well, hey, I know that some of our students are curious about the software and the hardware, and really what they're going to be learning and using in their classes.
Sure. I had a couple notes on here. I want to make sure I don't forget things about what platforms we're going to kind of cover, and some of the hardware we get down in our server room. Because one of the fun things is we actually have a student server room downstairs. Okay. And so in our server room we have Dell Blade servers. We have 72 servers. So we can have, in our class sizes usually are anywhere between 25 and 40 students. So we can have, each student in our class can have their own Blade in the server room, which is super cool, because we get a lot of hands-on experience that you wouldn't normally get in a lot of their classrooms. Oh, wow. So it's pretty cool, and we have students that manage the server room. We have students that can use the server room for their own projects between quarters sometimes, and then if we're not using them for all classes, sometimes we'll let some of the students do some of their own projects on them. We also have down in the server room, we have a storage area network. We have a bunch of switches. We have some IP phones that we're going to use in projects. We have routers. We have some firewalls. Kind of the whole gamut of enterprise equipment for students to get to play with.
I didn't realize that it was like the student server room. That sounds really cool. Like it now becomes yours as a student. Yep. So that's really neat.
And I usually pick 2 students to manage the server room of our seniors or incoming seniors. They're going to manage the server room, and a lot of decisions are made by them and the students themselves about how it's going to be run and what kind of projects we're going to do in there.
That's really cool. Really cool.
So far as, let me finish answering as far as platforms go. We do some Windows Server. We're going to do a bunch of Linux Server. We'll do virtualization. We'll do some VMware and some Hyper-V. We'll stand up some web servers in there. And we'll even do some IP phones, like I mentioned, and so we'll make some phone calls. One of our assignments that we do, I'll probably have you call your mom or something in class sometimes with a phone system that you built from scratch. So.
What? They're building a phone system?
Yeah, so we'll build a phone system. We'll download an open source phone system and use our handsets, our IP phone handsets, and their laptops, and make calls in class. And
oh, that's great. I want to see this.
Yeah, we'll have to invite you down when we're doing it. Maybe we'll call you.
Call me. Yeah, I would love that. I think that's just great. That's amazing. Well, tell me a little bit more about the core classes and what the students can expect as far as their main classes here at Neumont.
We do have a few generals, but the core IS classes, they're going to take a networking class and a networking 2 class. So those are kind of follow around a Cisco certification for networking. Oh, okay. Our students can get certified. We don't press hard for our students to get certification, but we really encourage them to do that. And some of our classes revolve around that a little bit.
So do they, when you talk about getting a certification, can they do that along with the class? Like, during class hours, can they take their certification test? How does that work?
Typically, they'll take it outside of class, but we'll encourage, and sometimes depending on how the class wants to run or how the students want to really be focused, sometimes I've had classes where students are like, as a group, we want to take this test. We want to be a CCNA, we want to be Cisco certified, or we want to be Security Plus certified. And so I can change the class a little bit so we can spend a little bit more time focusing on maybe a little bit more of the book learning versus the hands-on kind of learning that we might have in the server room. And so we can tailor that a little bit to the students depending on how that works. And I encourage all the students, because it's great to see that on a resume when a student graduates from college, because it adds a little bit to their resume that they don't normally have, a very beefy resume. So our HR folks like to see those sometimes.
Yeah, because it shows the proficiency, right?
Yeah, and we include those usually in the student costs. There's a number of certifications on Windows Server and Security Plus and Linux and some other things that they have the opportunity to take certifications exams depending on which ones we're going to offer the particular incoming class.
Okay. And are those more of your, when we start to think about the core concepts of what information systems degree is about, would that be part of that, or what would be the core concepts?
It would be kind of a core concept, because those are industry standard certifications. They're industry standard methods that people are using. So definitely, those are part of our core. We don't, like I said, we don't necessarily force students into those. It's kind of an extra, but we cover that material, and we cover that material not from necessarily always a book standpoint. We'll do it book and hands-on in IS. So our students they're doing a lot of reading, they're doing a lot, but also it's in coordination with a lot of hands-on virtual demonstrations, building servers maybe on their laptops. That's why they're so beefy. They'll build 5 or 6 servers on their laptops.
Wow.
And run those and show me what they can do to as we have a final. A lot of our finals are just hands-on and show me what you can do.
Okay, like that. Well, and that was the next question. Are students going to be building networks right away?
For sure. So networking, the interesting thing about the way Neumont's set up is we have all of our students come in and they take classes they come in as CS degrees, and then they get to decide what degree they're going to go into later on. And all the students take pretty much the same classes, but they take classes in each area. And so for IS, they'll be taking Networking 1. So they'll be learning about routing and how the internet works, and basically building a virtual internet on their laptops for that class. And all of the students will be doing that, as well as taking another class called Modern Ops, which is how to use your virtualization platform that's on your laptop, how to use get experience with Linux. So if you haven't ever had that experience, our new students, regardless of what degree they're going to be into, they're going to be getting some experience with how to install Linux, how to run a little more depth about Windows as well.
Oh, okay.
And so we kind of give them, that's their first dive.
So that's all students.
All students.
All students in Neumont. So not just information systems. Everybody gets a bit.
Yep.
Very cool. Okay. And I think that kind of leads us into, the next question is far as, let's see, when students are getting ready to graduate from information systems, what type of jobs are available, and what can students kind of be thinking about as far as employment once they're done?
Because of Neumont, our job description can vary a lot. And the way that we teach IS, a lot of our IS students will come out with a bunch of programming experience. So it gives them a little bit wider range of job titles they can look for. But I would suggest, if you're interested in looking at the job titles, go out to a website like Indeed and look at some job descriptions for positions like network engineer, network administrator, systems engineer, security administrator, security analyst, network analyst. There's a broad range of job positions that are out there, and each company kind of has different requirements and responsibilities, and they kind of vary. Even one network administrator at one company, maybe they're involved in a lot of Linux systems, versus a network administrator on another company, maybe they're just Windows, or they do a lot of infrastructure as far as switching and routing and those kind of things. So it can vary a lot, and so it's a good idea if students are interested, and go out there and search the job descriptions and see what kind of things are available. And if you're particular to an area of the country you want to be in, search in that area and see what kind of things are. And usually good sites like Indeed will also tell you kind of what those positions are paying at. And a lot of our students, we target them into moving into kind of a junior network administrator position.
Okay.
Sometimes they get hired into higher level positions, depending on their experience and what they've done at Neumont.
The titles that you are saying, network administrator, they sound like they're more of a mid-level employment. So our students, is that considered entry level, or what level are they going out at?
What we're targeting for the IS degree really is to try to get our students into that mid-level position. We obviously have some students that go into more tech positions or lower level positions, but a lot of times those are more, even in those positions, they might be called a support engineer or something like that. But a lot of times we see our students coming in at the higher end of those positions because of the skills and the hands-on that we've got, and the feedback we've got from a lot of employers and previous students that have graduated, is that they're coming into jobs, and even if they come into some that are maybe more entry, they're progressing very quickly because of the skills they have.
Oh, that's fun to hear. And that kind of all brings it back to the money, right?
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, I don't like to talk about the money all the time, but
that's
exciting.
I mean,
it's definitely, I think right now, I'm super excited. Graduation is happening tomorrow. We've got commencement for our students who are graduating, and so I know a lot of the students are graduating, and I'm super excited to see them get out there and get some really cool jobs because the market is so great right now, and it's going to continue to be that way. So it's hard to say exactly what salaries people are going to get, but we have some students that are making some really good salaries.
What and not to put you on the spot,
Thanks,
I'm going to put them on the spot.
Appreciate that.
For you guys.
Nice. Yeah.
So dollars talk to us. They speak to us.
Sure,
we're curious about what would be the average income level that a student could expect after they've graduated from Neumont. What can they expect when they go out into the work field and they're starting to work?
So my understanding right now is, I don't have the exact numbers for the students who are graduating, but I know right now probably 65,000 is a good number for what our students are seeing out there. Obviously, some of them are coming in a little bit lower because, and some of them are coming in a lot higher because of the cost of living that you see in places around the country, right? You spend a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to live in San Francisco or expensive big cities like that, and so they pay a little bit more salary-wise, and then there's other places that pay a little bit less. And so I think 65,000 is probably a good average for around what we're seeing our students go, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
It's amazing.
It is to think about. I think when I was in the early 20s, I maybe, I never made that much. Never made that much in my 20s.
And I didn't either. Even when I went and got my first job as a land administrator, I didn't make anywhere close to that. And some of our students are making a lot more than that. Some are making a little bit less. And so, like I said, that's kind of the average.
Well, and I am curious because I've heard that a lot of our students will do enterprise projects and get job offers from that. What type of enterprise projects are students working on? What have you noticed that how that plays into their placement and them actually getting a job once they graduate?
Sure. So with the enterprise projects, we have students that are going out to employers that Neumont's kind of contacted and arranged for them to kind of have, it's not an internship because we're actually giving you course credit for those, but at the same time, students are going out and actually working with an employer in that environment, working on projects that the employer thinks that they're capable of handling. And in a lot of cases, our students have got out there and aced those first projects, and the employer's like, wow, we thought you're going to have a hard time with this, and let's give you something harder to work on. And so it's great to see the Neumont students get out there, and it really surprises some of the employers. So they're like, hey, we need to hire these people. And so we've had a bunch of the IS students that are offered jobs from their enterprise positions because right now, like I said, the market is so great, and new people coming in have new ideas. They have new, aspirations. They're energetic, and so the employers are seeing that in these enterprise projects, and they're like, hey, I need these people. In fact, I had one student, I won't name names or employers' names, but I happen to know the CIO that runs the company over there, and he's not necessarily that involved with the enterprise project, but he called me up because we kind of are friends, and he said, Orrian, I need this student to be an enterprise next quarter because we want to hire him. We want him to come on board. We want to maybe even see what we can do. And he was slated to go to probably another company or, and so I was impressed that the CIO called me and said, "Hey, I want this Neumont student on my team, and we want to hire him." And I was super excited because it's great to see our students.
Well, and too, just to feel valued, I think everybody wants that. They want to know that what they have to offer is valuable, and that's just speaks volumes about you as an instructor, and having a student that's prepared and being sought after.
Well, and I hope so. Yeah. I'd like to think that. But
right. So I am curious, though. I've heard you say that industry and what's available right now is great. So I wanted to have you just tell us what makes the industry so great right now. Like, what is it that you mean by that?
Okay. So right now there's a shortage of computer scientists out there. And so what we see is that the number of jobs, a lot of employers are just not able to fill jobs because there's not qualified candidates out there right now. And that is going to continue into the foreseeable future. And so it makes it ideal for students that are coming out and graduating to get better jobs than they normally, than when I went to college, right? Long time ago.
You're not that old.
I am, sorry. And so what the opportunities are is that as technology is growing so fast, we're coming up with new technology, and from a computer scientist's perspective, we're just not able to keep up with the number of open positions out there because technology is growing so fast. Every week there's a new video game, there's a new application that's coming out that everybody needs on their phone or their laptop, or there's just so many things coming out. Cars are using so much more technology. Everything. My refrigerator has more technology than it used to have. I go down to the store and look at everybody's fridge, and it has more technology. And so we need people to support those and drive that technology that's going on. And so as we develop all these new technologies, there's new positions that are opening, and they're really having a hard time filling those. And so it's exciting for me because I'm seeing students get awesome jobs out there. I'm seeing students finish with their degree in 3 years instead of 4 years. I'm seeing, one of the reasons why I came to Neumont is I'm so excited about and passionate about what we're doing with all the hands-on, the industry experience. At normal university, they probably wouldn't bring me on to teach students because because I've had so much industry experience, but I haven't had a lot of book experience, right? Sometimes I'm not. It's the theory, right? I'm not a theorist, and so, so colleges like theory. A lot of colleges do. And
Everyone but Neumont.
And so here, I was excited to see that one of the things that Neumont is doing is a lot of hands-on. We're doing IS specific things. And a lot of colleges, when I went to college, they didn't even have IS programs. And so those are exciting and make us passionate about it and make us kind of a differentiator. And I think employers are seeing that from our students, and really they're excited to hire students.
I love the hands-on aspect, and that's what I hear from our students as they're coming in. They're looking for a program where they can actually implement what they're learning. And I think that's kind of what you've described here today, is that it's hands-on. So one final question for you. Who would make a good fit for our information systems? Like what candidate, what student personality, who would be a good fit for information systems?
So typically I've said that people that make a good fit in IS are really kind of people that like the hands-on. I like to even though we're moving into virtualization and a lot of things that are virtual, we touch hardware a lot more than other aspects of computer scientists, right? We're actually making sure that the equipment's working properly. We're sometimes installing racking hardware. We're involved with speccing hardware out, speccing systems, and so for me, a lot of it's and that was some of the appeal to me is I actually get to touch things. But I'd also say part of what is a good person for IS is someone that communicates well. We have to do a lot of communication with other people that are within the organization or the enterprise and find out what are the issues or problems you're having. How do I help solve those problems? So communication is an important thing and something that we kind of focus on. The second thing would be, and I think this is across all computer scientists. To be successful, you have to desire to learn new things and continue to learn things. And I think that's what kind of drives our I guess our whole industry.
Yeah, and that makes sense because it's always changing. You were just telling us, you know, there's always something new every day coming out. So.
Yep. And so if you like that kind of thing, if you like the ability, the learning to learn kind of thing is really important, especially in IS because we have our hands in so many things.
Very cool.
I like to tell the CS person that it's our stuff that runs your stuff.
It's your stuff, our stuff that runs your stuff. I like it. Like it. Well, I do want to thank you for being here today, and thank you to our students for coming in, watching us today, sending us your questions. We'll look forward to having you with us here at Neumont. Thanks,
awesome.
Everyone.
Thanks.
You are awesome.
You're awesome.
No, you're awesome. That's fun. Like, I didn't realize how in-depth everything went. I knew it was in-depth, but I think you just taught me a new language.